Hello, everyone. This is John Fisher at All About the Jersey, and I'm pretending to be Kevin Lomax in Eastside Hockey Manager, managing the redo of the 2015-2016 New Jersey Devils. And as it turns out, letting the AI do its work has paid off very well for the Devils. You'll notice the Devils are no longer in second in the Eastern Conference. However, they are still in a playoff position. They're tied with the Capitals in points and only 4 points back of the hated New York Rangers. The Devils have done very well in the month of November. I only count 1, 2, 3, 4 losses out of 12 games. They won all the other games, so that's a record of 8-4, and that's remarkable compared to what happened in real life. Real life, if I recall correctly, it wasn't that bad, but it definitely wasn't as good as an 8-4 month, especially with big wins over Chicago and Pittsburgh and splitting a home and home with Montreal. And oh yeah, dropping Vancouver twice was also fun. So we're going to go through the 12 games. But before I get into that, I want to go over a couple of the moves that were suggested. So first and foremost, Mike Stromberg, who does write All About the Jersey, wanted to see if Adam Larson could be traded for Taylor Hall straight up. The answer is no. Taylor Hall in this game is very good. Very, 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 very good. In fact, he's one of the best players on one of the best teams in the Western Conference because Edmonton is not run by idiots in EHM. So that trade got rejected very quickly. The other trade I was suggested by Lead Hot Zeppelin Pepper suggested a Devontae Smith-Pelly trade straight up for Stefan Matteau, another recreation of real life. That got rejected twice. I tried it at the beginning of the month, and then I tried it later after Stefan Matteau had one of the best games in his short career here. We'll be seeing that when we go over the 12 games. Unfortunately, both times they were rejected, and both reasons Montreal gave were that they think that Devontae Smith-Pelly is too important for the future to trade away. So I just kept those trades as they were, and that was that. I will also say, going over other suggested moves by other users, NJD Maniac wanted me to pick up anyone notable from the waiver wire if available. I don't know if you would consider Patrick Maroon or Nick Spaulding notable. I call them guys getting paid way too much to be not very good in EHM, so I passed up on both of them. Unfortunately, the waiver wire hasn't had anybody interesting, and I'm really kicking myself for not picking up on Matthew Perrault or even Johan Franzen in his awful contract in that respect. But if I see anybody on the waiver wire, Kevin and I will jump right on it. The other move was suggested by Crandish. He wanted me, or she wanted me, I don't know if Crandish is a he or she, wanted me to put Jiri Tlusty and Eric Jelena on the block. Well, I decided to invoke a veto for half of that. I put Jelena on the block, but I didn't put Tlusty on the block yet, and I know it created some additional commentary after I said I would sim the game, so we'll go over a little bit of that, and maybe we'll do it next month. But I'm going to make a case as to why I did it that way. First, let's go through the games. So the first game was against the Islanders, and Kyle Palmieri. Kyle Palmieri actually started scoring a couple more goals in this month, so he tended to have a good month. Unfortunately, this effort did not go very well, even though Zajac provided a late equalizer. Andreas Lee provided an even later go-ahead goal. Ratings here, not the greatest of games. Kyle Palmieri did have a good game, though. So that was that. On Friday, on the 6th, the Devils hosted Chicago, and Patrick Elias scored a non-power play goal for the first time this season, and Adam Henrique got on the board, which was also very good. The funny thing here is you see at the bottom, shots were nearly even, and, not much in the way of special teams. Very clean game, so to speak. And passes completed, which is something that I'm sure Ryan is appreciating, the fact that the Devils are close to Chicago in that regard. Chicago in this game hasn't been all that great. Nevertheless, Schneider had an awesome game with a complete shutout. Patrick Elias and Henrique, and you notice a lot of 7s and 8s over here, and you see more 6s and a couple 5s. Chicago, not doing so hot. Vancouver, in real life, this was a very feisty game. In this game, let's see here. not as feisty, only 8 total penalty minutes. Plenty of goals, though. Mike Camilleri got back onto the scoring sheet. Stempniak got back on the scoring sheet. And the third period was just goal, goal, goal. Again, you have 2 empty netters and a power play goal in between. But, hey, goals count. 5-3 win, still counts. St. Louis, this was actually considered a quote-unquote big game in the sense that St. Louis was a 4th in the West, I believe, when this game happened. So the Devils went in there and, really played very well. Outshot them 35-25. Again, got an empty netter from Mateau, but Elias and Palmieri were very good in this particular game. Tarasenko definitely was a threat, but unfortunately, Alex Pietrangelo had a pretty poor game. John Merrill had a monster game. He had 3 assists and got rated a 10. The only real sore spot of that win was Hedem Henrique posting up a 5, but everybody else really just carried the weight, so to speak. So good for them. Moving on, the Devils went to Chicago for the run back, and Palmieri and Stempniak scored some big goals in the third period. Mark O'Donoghue gave him some life, but again, Cory Schneider held it down, and so did the Devils. Not a great game from Merrill or John Moore or Patrick Elias, but again, other guys were able to step up, and when you want to be a good team, you have to have other players stepping up. Notably, if I recall correctly, Ruutu was on the line with Zajac, and it actually worked well. That was odd to see. Moving on, Pittsburgh. Real life, this was a great game in real life, and it was a great game in EHM as well. Devils posted up another shutout. Zajac and John Moore dropping in a hammer on the power play. Had a much better night than he had before. Schneider was really the star. Camilleri and Tlusty were obviously important players, but other guys contributed, and most of the Penguins, they didn't do too bad. Only Eric Fehr really stuck out as being bad, but everyone else was pretty decent. So the Devils went up against a solid team and came out well. Then came the road trip through Western Canada. This did not go so well. Calgary, which is rated fairly well in the game, they just destroyed the Devils. Outshot them 36-19. They beat them 3-0. You look at the ratings, a lot of 5s and 6s on the Devils side here. Only Schneider was above a 7. Compare that to the Calgary Flames, which, Jiri Hudler, basically styled on them for, however many minutes he played. As mentioned earlier, the Oilers are very good in EHM, and they were very good in this game as well. The Devils didn't really get much of a sniff at the net. Palmieri gave them some hope in the second period to try to keep it close, but the Oilers just didn't give them much up. Their defense was very, very good that night. Added on empty to really sap out their hopes, and again, the Devils didn't play a particularly strong game. Some of your better players had some pretty, nothing games. Schneider was a rare 7, and I'll explain a little bit why 7 is rare. And, it is a little disheartening to see that Eric Gribba and Benoit Poilot were, stars against the Devils and not like, Jordan Everett. Well, he had a goal. He could have been a star. Lion Draisaitl also had a goal. Connor McDavid, didn't do much. But nevertheless, in EHM, they're doing very, very well. Go back to Vancouver, and Devils ended this with a big goal fest. Larson got Ruutu got an early goal. Adam Larson got an early goal. And then, Mateau, he had a big game as well with, this is the game where he got a 9. And then I think the game after this, he did even better. But, a lot of players really showed up to play very well. I will say Josefson didn't do all that well, and he's been rotated out. AI John Hines has been basically rotating out Kalinin, Josefson, Gianta, a lot of the fourth liners. And he's been doing the same between Severson, Schlemko, and occasionally Jelena. That being said, the Devils are getting results, so it's really hard to complain what they're doing. And other players have been stepping up with big performances, and in this case, productive performances. So very good from the New Jersey Devils. Very good there. Go back to Columbus. No disappointment here. Sergei Kalinin finally gets on the board. Zajac keeps getting on the board, and Tlusty adds in an empty to make that count. Schneider with another 10 performance. And again, plenty of good players. Mateau actually, he was okay with Henrique, who had another surprising, disappointing effort. But it's all good when, the other team is really just producing very, very little. Again, 25 shots to 22 and you have 3 goals. Especially 2 goals early on in the game. Columbus fans probably would be screaming, shoot the puck more. Go to Montreal, and this is in New Jersey, rather. And then the next game is in Montreal. This was, a strong game from Tlusty. Strong game from Palmieri with 2 goals. Again, he's been hot in this month. Henrique really bounced back. He had some poor games during the month, and he really stepped up in this one to really make this game possible. Schneider held it down as usual. The defense was pretty decent. And, Devils outshot him 28-24. So they really held on well and performed very well against a good Montreal team in this league. Yeah, I know. It goes back to injuries, really. I mean, Carey Price, he isn't injured. Mike Condon played this game, but Carey Price being able to play a full season, this team was successful. And then the run back, Stempniak scored 18 seconds into the game, thinking, all right, this is, the good times are going to keep on rolling. But Montreal then just basically put him on blast. They outshot him 29-19. They answered back and tacked on another goal and just didn't let anything happen. Carey Price had a good game. Andrei Markov and PK Subban, who, probably won't be traded to Nashville in EHM, or at least he shouldn't. So he did well. And in the battle between Mateau and Smith-Pelly, neither of them got on the board, but they had decent nights, so good for them, I guess. So that's how the month ended. We're technically on November 30th, so we're not in December yet. In December, we start with a game against Colorado and then a whole bunch more games. So a lot could happen. We still have a roster freeze coming up, so any moves that you're going to suggest to me for this post in the comments are going to be made by the 18th in-game. I try not to do this necessarily at the beginning of the month for reasons like want to get players in the best position possible. So here's what the current roster looks like. We have some minor injuries. Stéphane Mateau did have a twisted ankle, so he missed about a week. But these are considered minor injuries. These guys have colds right now. They're basically, as you see in the little subtext here, the player's injured but able to practice. Meaning if they have to play, they will play. They're just not at a good condition level because they're at 90% instead of a fresh 100%. And because they have colds, I'm sure other players are going to get it. So the beginning of December may be a little rough. I will say you see this little WNT here on Eric Jelena. So per Krantish's suggestion, I put Jelena on the block along with Keith Kincaid. His morale has stayed good. He's okay, just like Kincaid is okay, even though I would expect Kincaid to be lower since he hasn't played a single game yet. But Jelena has been getting into games. He's played in 19 of them. He hasn't really produced much or done much of anything, but other teams want him, and you can actually go to the information seer to see that Detroit is interested in him. Oh, and he's not a fan of Kevin Lomax. I wonder why. Oh, yeah, that's right, because I put him on the block for no good reason. So when you suggest to me to put players on the block, they do know and they do react accordingly. So they may be feeling pretty good. They're happy with, they're performing well, but they're uncertain about their future with the team. And considering, he's got another year or so on his contract, he has every right to feel that way. Nevertheless, you want me to move him? I'm just going to say for players, especially notable players, like Jiri Tlusty, and I'll show you why he's notable in a moment, it's better if you recommend an actual trade. Like, say, hey, go trade, make a trade with a team, make a trade with a player. Putting him on the block, can sow some discontentment. And as well things are going in the with the team, with the organization as a whole right now, it would be a bad move to do that. And more importantly, even though Detroit was interested in Jelena, as indicated right here, I haven't gotten any offers for Jelena, just like I haven't gotten any offers for Kincaid, who's been on the block since the beginning of the season. So I don't recommend putting players on the block, especially notable players. So that's why I said no to Mr. Tlusty. That being said, here's the other reason why I said no to Tlusty. And we're going to look at the stats over here. He's our leading scorer. Yeah, I know. He tacked on a couple empty netters, and that boosts the points a little bit. But he's got more points than everyone else on the team. He's one of the teams. He's in the higher end of the teams in terms of shots. He's doing this, and his rating is really, really good. He's got the second best average rating on the team. And remember, in EHM and Football Manager and games like this, your rating is basically your one-stop, general barometer of how well a player is playing. Tlusty being a 7.87 average means he's one of the better players in the entire NHL. Schneider's just on another level, and I'll show you exactly how much of another level he's really on. So to that extent, putting Tlusty on the block would cause a lot of internal problems, and that's why if you really want Tlusty to be moved, suggest a player. And as far as what players you should suggest, Norton Nemesis once again had a good suggestion. They wanted to see the top 30 players in terms of scoring, so let's quickly do that to see what sort of players we should be shooting for if you want to make a big deal. So Tlusty right now is currently tied at 31st overall with Tarasenko, Drouin, Daniel Sedin, Silfverberg, and Evander Kane, as well as Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. And all these players have been more productive in terms of points. A lot of 21, 23s, and so forth. Carl Hagelin, amazingly, is in first place with Anaheim, of all places. He's playing real great, and so is TJ Oshie. But again, some of these other names really, shouldn't surprise you. Okay, Benoit Poilot is a total surprise. But the Ryan Johanssons, Ovechkins, Benz, Stastnys, Steens, so on and so forth. These are the quote-unquote big names. So if you're a big believer of moving Tlusty for one of these bigger players, the idea should be that, you should make a package for that. If you want, if you can say, hey, John, or Kevin Lomax rather, go make a deal. Like, let's offer a package for a player. We can try to do that. So as mentioned earlier, Taylor Hall, it was suggested by Mike, and I thought he would be on the top scoring list, but he's not. So let's just go to the team page right here. So let's say approach to trade. And we're going to inquire about him. So this is something we can do. We can inquire to say, what would it take? Submit a trade offer. And what you do is eventually you'll get an email to tell you what it is that they're interested in. And they'll force the computer to give you an option. The media will also pick up on repeated trade requests. I've learned this with the Mateau for DSP move, that they'll say, the Devils are interested in DSP, and therefore, other teams will see what you are doing. So if somebody is interested in that, you can jump on that and make a better offer, and, you can quote unquote negotiate through the media like that. So I will try to do that. But again, if you want me to move Jiri Tlusty that badly, and I'm going to suggest that you probably shouldn't, considering he's doing so well right now. And remember that the goal is that we want the Devils to make the playoffs. Moving your top scorer kind of goes against that logic. Again, though, if you want Tlusty to be traded as part of a package for a quote-unquote more notable player, again, here are the top scorers. Have at it. I'm going to just pause a little bit here so you can take a quick look, drink it in a little bit. Okie dokie. Now let's look at that little thing called rating. So rating does include goaltenders when you do sort by average rating. And notice that Cory Schneider has the second best average rating in the entire NHL, even including players that only have played a handful of games, like Antti Ranta, Jonas Gustafsson, and Andres Palat in his 5 games before he got terribly injured. Tlusty is actually one of the top players in this regard as well. So if you have the logic of, hey, let's move Tlusty while he's doing incredibly well, go for it. But again, it's not going to be very well received, especially if the goal is to make the playoffs. So again, try to make a better package for this. Schneider has been absolutely amazing. He's been playing in every single game, and he's the best goaltender in the league right now. Straight up the best goaltender in the league. And even if we don't sort by, we just sort by goaltender save percentage, the only guys with a better save percentage are guys who have played only a handful of games. Ranta is nearly equal. He's only played 6 games. Hackett has only played 1 game. 936. Like, he's 9 thousandths ahead of number 4 Carey Price. Schneider is the man in this game. I'm just going to say it right now. Don't make me trade Cory Schneider. Please do not make me trade Cory Schneider. I may veto any trade request for Cory Schneider. He's that important. And remember, the goal is to make the playoffs. I'm not terribly concerned about next season. I wouldn't necessarily say that we're going to sim next season and say we're going to try to make the Devils a better team at all costs. But if that's the approach you want to make, let's do that. Because again, we got to make the playoffs here. That is the goal, and I want to make that goal. I will say, however, the Devils as they are right now, with a healthy Patrick Elias, a healthy Jiri Tlusty, and other players performing, they are doing that. So that's why I did not put Tlusty on the block, and I don't want to necessarily. But if you guys keep encouraging me to do so and make good arguments for it, then I will do it. Because hey, we're working together to try to make this team make the postseason again. One other thing I want to highlight before I close out this video, and I'm just going to pause a little bit so I can search for it. Right, so every month or so I get this email from my scouting staff telling me about a prospect update from the farm clubs. There was one for Adirondack for Ken Appleby that basically just said that Ken Appleby will not be an NHL player. So I'm just going to show this one here. The key point here is that Reed Boucher could play top-line minutes now. Unfortunately, Joseph Blandisi does not appear to have the talent to make it at this level according to our scouts, and Blake Coleman could provide depth, who is actually playing. They're also not big on Raman Rabarenka or Reese Scarlett, but that's neither here nor there. Anyway, so going back to our roster, we have 23 full players. So even if I wanted to call up Reed Boucher, I can't. I'd have to move somebody down. And if I want to bring in somebody on waivers, I also have to make space to do that. So what I would like you to do is, as you make suggestions of what I should do with this roster to try to make it better, make it more likely that they'll make the playoffs. Again, I do agree that the fourth line and the third line to an extent could be made better. But that means don't just say, hey, pick up a guy off waivers. Suggest who else I could send down, or maybe be willing to move in a deal, even if it's a minor deal. Because a lot of these trades that happen in the NHL and EHM are minor trades. Like we're trading B-level prospect for C-level prospect or something like that. So, if you want me to make a move just to get, say, Bobby Farnham off the roster and give Reed Boucher a roster spot, you can make that suggestion. And I will try to do that in the next coming month. I will try to be simming either Wednesday or maybe Thursday, maybe Friday at the latest. I'll give you a heads up in the comments. But again, go to the comments at All About the Jersey and let me know what you think of how the Devils are doing in EHM world. Again, they're doing very well. And let me know what you want me to do with this roster in December so we can go into the new fake year in the postseason. Thank you for watching. Thank you for reading. And have a good day.